The sound of breaking glass echoed through the private hospital wing as Nathan Cross hurled his water pitcher against the pristine white wall. The expensive crystal shattered into 1,000 pieces, much like his life had 6 months ago when that drunk driver ran the red light and changed everything forever. "Get out!" Nathan screamed at the trembling nurse who had dared suggest he try sitting up today. "Get out and don't come back." The young woman fled, her shoes squeaking against the polished floor as she rushed toward the door. She was the 4th nurse to quit this week, the 20th since Nathan had been transferred to this private wing of Metropolitan General Hospital. His family had spared no expense trying to give him the best care money could buy, but Nathan didn't want their care. He didn't want anyone's care. He wanted to be left alone to rot in this bed, just like his legs were already doing beneath the silk sheets his sister had brought from his penthouse apartment. The same legs that had carried him up mountains, through marathon races, and across stages to accept business awards were now as useful as the broken glass scattered across his floor. Nathan Cross had built a tech empire worth $3 billion by the time he was 35. Cross Industries had revolutionized cloud computing and artificial intelligence. He had been featured on magazine covers, invited to speak at conferences around the world, and courted by politicians and celebrities alike. 6 months ago he could make a single phone call and move mountains. Now he couldn't even move his own feet. The accident had happened on a Tuesday night in March. Nathan had been driving home from a board meeting, his mind already focused on the presentation he would give in London the following week. The drunk driver had blown through the intersection at 60 miles per hour, slamming into the passenger side of Nathan's Tesla Model S and sending it spinning into a concrete barrier. Nathan remembered waking up in the hospital 3 days later to find his world had shrunk to the size of a hospital bed. The doctors had explained the damage to his spinal cord in careful, measured tones. They spoke about incomplete injuries and potential for recovery, but Nathan had seen the doubt in their eyes. He had built his fortune on reading people, on understanding what they weren't saying as much as what they were. His legs were gone. His mobility was gone. His independence was gone. Everything that had made Nathan Cross who he was had been stripped away in a single moment of twisted metal and shattered glass. The door to his room opened again, and Nathan grabbed the nearest object, a book his mother had left by his bedside, preparing to launch it at whoever dared disturb his misery. But instead of another nervous nurse or well-meaning doctor, a woman in a simple blue uniform entered quietly, pushing a cleaning cart ahead of her. She was African American, probably in her late 20s, with natural hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her uniform bore the name Riley, embroidered in small letters above the pocket. She didn't look at Nathan or acknowledge his presence. She simply began her work, starting with the broken glass near the wall. "What are you doing?" Nathan demanded, his voice hoarse from shouting. "I said get out." Riley continued sweeping up the glass, her movements efficient and unhurried. She didn't flinch at his tone or show any sign that his words affected her. This was new. Everyone else, nurses, doctors, therapists, family members, they all reacted to his anger with either fear or pity. This woman showed neither. "Did you hear me?" Nathan's voice rose higher. "I want to be alone." Riley finished cleaning the glass and moved to empty his wastebasket. She worked with a quiet focus that somehow made Nathan feel invisible in his own room. He wasn't used to being ignored. Even now, in his broken state, he expected people to react to him, to his presence, to his rage. "Why won't you answer me?" Nathan's frustration boiled over. "I'm talking to you." For the first time, Riley looked directly at him. Her eyes were calm and steady, holding his gaze without challenge or sympathy. She didn't speak, but something in her expression suggested she had heard everything he said and had chosen not to respond rather than been unable to. Nathan found himself studying her face. There was a strength there, a quiet resilience that reminded him of something he couldn't quite place. Her uniform was old but clean, and he noticed she wore no jewelry except for a simple cross necklace that caught the light as she moved. Riley finished her cleaning routine and headed toward the door, still without having spoken a word. As she reached for the handle, Nathan called out again, his voice less angry now and more confused. "Why don't you talk?" Riley paused with her hand on the door handle. She looked back at him, and for a moment Nathan thought she might finally speak. Instead, she gave him a small nod, not quite acknowledgement, not quite dismissal, and left the room, pulling her cart behind her. Nathan lay in the sudden silence, staring at the door where Riley had disappeared. For the first time in months, his anger had been met with something other than fear or pity. This woman had treated him like he was just another room to clean, another task to complete. She hadn't tried to cheer him up or encourage him or treat him like a fragile victim. She had simply done her job and left. Outside his window, the city continued its relentless pace. Nathan could see the lights of his own corporate headquarters in the distance, the Cross Industries logo glowing against the night sky. His assistant had stopped calling weeks ago. The board of directors had already started making decisions without him. His empire was learning to function without its emperor. Nathan closed his eyes and tried to remember what it felt like to stand on his own 2 feet. He tried to remember the weight of his body moving through space, the simple act of walking from one room to another. But those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now, someone who had died in that hospital room 6 months ago when the doctors had delivered their careful diagnosis. The night shift was always quieter in the hospital. Nathan had grown to dread the long hours of darkness when there were no distractions from his thoughts, no parade of medical professionals to yell at or family members to push away. Tonight felt different somehow, charged with a restless energy he couldn't name. He found himself thinking about the cleaning woman Riley. There had been something in her eyes, something that suggested she understood pain in a way that the doctors and nurses didn't. They approached his condition like a medical puzzle to be solved or a tragedy to be overcome. Riley had looked at him like he was simply a man having a difficult night. Nathan had built his fortune on understanding people, on reading the subtle signals that revealed their true thoughts and motivations. But Riley had given him nothing to read. She was a blank page, a closed book, a mystery wrapped in a simple blue uniform. As dawn approached, Nathan made a decision that surprised him. For the first time since the accident, he was curious about something other than his own misery. He wanted to know more about the woman who cleaned his room in the middle of the night, the woman who had looked at him without flinching and left without speaking. He wanted to understand why her silence had affected him more than all the words of comfort and encouragement he had received from everyone else. Nathan Cross had lost everything that mattered to him, but as the first light of morning crept through his hospital window, he realized he had found something unexpected. A mystery worth solving, a puzzle more interesting than his own broken body. And for the first time in months, Nathan Cross wanted to know what tomorrow would bring. The next evening, Nathan found himself watching the door with an anticipation that surprised him. He had spent the day refusing physical therapy, dismissing his doctor's concerns about muscle atrophy, and generally making life miserable for anyone who entered his room. But as the evening shift began and the hospital settled into its quieter nighttime rhythm, Nathan caught himself listening for the sound of wheels on linoleum that would announce Riley's arrival. She came at exactly 11:30, just as she had the night before. This time, Nathan was ready for her silence. He watched as she entered with her cleaning cart, noting the way she moved with purpose and efficiency. There was no wasted motion in anything she did, no hesitation or uncertainty. "You're late," Nathan said, though he knew this wasn't true. He was testing her, trying to provoke some kind of response. Riley began dusting the windowsill, her back turned to him. She wore the same blue uniform, though Nathan noticed it had been freshly pressed. Someone cared enough to make sure she looked professional, even for the night shift that most people never saw. "I've been thinking about you," Nathan continued, his tone less aggressive than the night before. "Wondering why you don't talk. Are you mute? Is that it?" Riley moved to clean the small table beside his bed, working around the various medical equipment and prescription bottles. Her movements brought her close enough that Nathan could smell the faint scent of lavender soap. It was clean and simple, a sharp contrast to the antiseptic smell that dominated everything else in his world. "Or maybe you just don't speak English very well?" Nathan pressed on, though something in Riley's bearing suggested this wasn't the case. "I could have someone translate if you need." Riley turned and looked directly at him, one eyebrow raised slightly. The expression was so subtle that Nathan almost missed it, but the message was clear. She understood him perfectly well and found his assumptions mildly amusing. "Okay, so you speak English," Nathan said, feeling oddly pleased that he had gotten even this small reaction from her. "But you choose not to talk. Why?" Riley returned to her cleaning, moving to mop the floor near his bed. The rhythmic sound of the mop against the linoleum was strangely soothing after the chaos of Nathan's day. He found himself relaxing for the first time in hours. "My sister came by today," Nathan said, surprising himself by sharing something personal. "She brought flowers." He gestured weakly toward the elaborate bouquet that dominated his bedside table. 24 white roses. "Do you know what white roses mean?" Riley glanced at the flowers but didn't respond. "They represent new beginnings," Nathan continued, his voice growing bitter. "Fresh starts. Hope." He laughed harshly. "She has no idea how ridiculous that is. What kind of new beginning can a man have when he can't even begin to get out of bed?" Riley paused in her mopping, her eyes moving from the flowers to Nathan's face. For a moment, something shifted in her expression, not pity, but a kind of understanding that made Nathan's chest tighten unexpectedly. "You think I'm being dramatic," Nathan said, interpreting her look. "Everyone does. They keep telling me about people who have overcome worse injuries, about athletes who've returned to competition, about all the amazing things that are possible with determination and the right attitude." His voice rose with frustration. "But they don't understand. I'm not some inspirational story waiting to happen. I'm just broken." Riley finished mopping and moved to clean the mirror above his sink. Nathan watched her reflection as she worked, noting the way she focused completely on each task. There was something meditative about her approach to the work, as if the simple act of cleaning provided its own kind of peace. "What about you?" Nathan asked suddenly. "What's your story?" "Everyone has one." Riley's reflection met his eyes in the mirror for just a moment before she turned away to rinse her cloth. "Let me guess," Nathan continued, settling into what felt like a familiar game. "Single mother? Working multiple jobs to make ends meet? Probably have a kid at home wondering why mommy has to work all night." The cloth in Riley's hand stilled for just a fraction of a second. Nathan had hit close to home, he could tell. "I'm right, aren't I?" Nathan pressed, but not unkindly. "What's his name? Or her name?" Riley turned to face him fully for the first time that night. She studied his face for a long moment as if trying to decide something. Then she reached into her uniform pocket and pulled out her phone. She swiped to what Nathan assumed was a photo and held it up for him to see. The picture showed Riley with a young boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, both of them grinning at the camera. They were at what looked like a school playground, the boy hanging upside down from a jungle gym while Riley laughed beside him. The joy in both their faces was so genuine and infectious that Nathan felt something twist in his chest. "He's beautiful," Nathan said softly, and meant it. "What's his name?" Riley's thumb moved across the phone screen, and Nathan realized she was typing something. She turned the phone around to show him the screen, which displayed a simple message. "Jaden. He's 8. "Jaden?" Nathan repeated, studying the photo again. The boy had Riley's eyes and her smile, but there was something else in his expression, a mischievous energy that suggested he kept his mother on her toes. "He looks like trouble?" Riley's mouth curved in what might have been the beginning of a smile. She typed another message. "He is. But the good kind." Nathan found himself smiling too, the first genuine smile he could remember since the accident. "The good kind of trouble. I like that." Riley put her phone away and returned to her cleaning routine, but something had shifted between them. The silence no longer felt hostile or uncomfortable. It felt companionable, like they had established the beginning of communication even without traditional conversation. "Why don't you talk?" Nathan asked again, but his tone was gentler now, genuinely curious rather than demanding. "Is it by choice?" Riley paused in her work and looked at him thoughtfully. Then she moved to the small whiteboard that hung on the wall near his bed, used by medical staff to write daily goals and medication schedules. She picked up the marker and wrote in neat, precise handwriting, "Sometimes silence says more than words." Nathan stared at the message, struck by its simple truth. In a world where he had been surrounded by constant noise, business meetings, phone calls, the relentless chatter of success, Riley's silence felt like a gift. She wasn't trying to fill the space with meaningless conversation or false encouragement. She was simply present, offering her quiet strength without demanding anything in return. "You're wise," Nathan said after a long moment. "Wiser than all the doctors and therapists who keep trying to fix me with words." Riley erased the board and wrote something new. "Nothing wrong with you that needs fixing. Just healing." The distinction hit Nathan like a physical blow. Everyone else approached him like he was broken, like he was a problem to be solved or a challenge to be overcome. Riley saw him as wounded, as someone who needed time and care to heal, not someone who needed to be repaired or replaced. "Where did you learn to be so smart?" Nathan asked. Riley's answer appeared on the board. "Life is a good teacher." Nathan wanted to ask her more about her life, her struggles, what had taught her to see the world with such clarity. But Riley was already putting away the marker and gathering her cleaning supplies. Her shift was ending and she needed to move on to other rooms, other tasks. "Will you come back tomorrow night?" Nathan asked as she headed toward the door. Riley paused and looked back at him. She nodded once, a simple gesture that somehow carried the weight of a promise. After she left, Nathan stared at the whiteboard where traces of her words still remained despite her attempt to erase them. He could make out the faint outline of "just healing" in the fluorescent light. For the first time since the accident, Nathan began to consider the possibility that healing might be different from fixing. That maybe he didn't need to become the man he had been before. Maybe he needed to become someone entirely new. As he drifted off to sleep that night, Nathan found himself looking forward to tomorrow evening in a way he hadn't looked forward to anything in months. Not because he expected miracles or sudden breakthroughs, but because he had found something rare and precious. Honest communication without pretense, understanding without pity, and presence without demands. In Riley's silence, Nathan was beginning to find his own voice again. 3 weeks had passed since Riley first entered Nathan's room, and their nightly encounters had developed into an unusual rhythm. Riley would arrive, perform her cleaning duties, and engage in their strange form of conversation, Nathan speaking aloud while Riley responded through written messages on the whiteboard, text messages on her phone, or simple gestures that spoke volumes. Nathan had learned that Jaden played Little League baseball and wanted to be a veterinarian when he grew up. He knew that Riley worked 3 jobs: cleaning at the hospital, stocking shelves at a grocery store during early morning hours, and helping elderly residents at a nursing home on weekends. He discovered that she was taking online courses toward her nursing degree, studying during breaks and staying up late after Jaden fell asleep. But tonight felt different. Nathan had endured a particularly brutal day of well-meaning visitors. His mother had arrived with a physical therapist she had hired privately, a cheerful woman who spoke to Nathan like he was a child who needed constant encouragement. His business partner had stopped by with updates about the company, carefully avoiding any mention of the major decisions being made without Nathan's input. His sister had brought another bouquet of flowers, this time yellow roses for friendship, and spent an hour talking about all the disabled athletes she had researched online. By the time Riley arrived for her shift, Nathan was simmering with rage and frustration. He had thrown his dinner tray across the room hours earlier, leaving a mess of mashed potatoes and gravy splattered against the wall. The evening nurses had cleaned most of it up, but stains remained on the white paint like ugly reminders of his loss of control. Riley entered as she always did, quiet and focused, but Nathan was in no mood for their usual peaceful routine. "Don't," Nathan snapped as she began setting up her cleaning supplies. "Don't start with the caring routine. I'm not in the mood for your silent sympathy tonight." Riley glanced at him but continued preparing her cleaning cart, unperturbed by his hostility. "Did you hear me?" Nathan's voice rose. "I said not tonight. I'm tired of being everyone's project. I'm tired of people thinking they can fix me or help me or understand what I'm going through." Riley began dusting the furniture near his bed, her movements calm and methodical despite his outburst. "You know what happened today?" Nathan continued, his anger building. "My mother brought in another therapist. Another person who wants to work with me, to achieve my goals. They all have the same speech, you know. About overcoming obstacles and finding inner strength and not giving up on my dreams." Riley moved to clean the window, her back turned to Nathan as he raged. "And then my business partner showed up with his reports and his careful updates, pretending like he's keeping me informed while actually making it clear that the company is moving on without me. That they're all moving on without me because I'm no longer useful." Nathan's voice cracked slightly on the last word, betraying the pain beneath his anger. "But you know what the worst part was?" He was shouting now, his composure completely shattered. "My sister brought me articles about athletes who competed in the Paralympics. Stories about people who climbed mountains in wheelchairs and ran marathons with prosthetic legs. She actually looked me in the eye and said, 'See? You can still do amazing things.'" Riley turned from the window, her expression still calm but something new flickering in her eyes, a sharpness that hadn't been there before. "Amazing things," Nathan repeated bitterly. "As if the only way my life has value now is if I become some kind of inspiration story. As if I need to prove that being disabled doesn't define me by achieving extraordinary things. What if I don't want to climb mountains or run marathons? What if I just want to be a normal person who happens to use a wheelchair?" Nathan grabbed his water glass and hurled it at the wall near Riley's head. It shattered against the paint, sending shards of glass across the floor. Riley didn't flinch, didn't even step back from the broken pieces that landed near her feet. "What if I'm just angry and broken and tired of pretending to be grateful for the small blessings in my life?" Nathan's voice was raw now, all his carefully maintained control gone. "What if I don't want to be brave or strong or inspiring? What if I just want to feel sorry for myself?" Riley watched him for a long moment, then moved to get her broom to clean up the broken glass. Her complete lack of reaction to his tantrum only fueled Nathan's rage. "Say something," Nathan screamed. "For once in your life, say something. Stop treating me like I'm just another mess to clean up. Stop pitying me." Riley finished sweeping up the glass and emptied it into her trash bag. Then she walked over to the whiteboard, picked up the marker and wrote in large clear letters, "I don't pity you." "Then what?" Nathan demanded, his chest heaving with emotion. "What is this? Why do you keep coming in here night after night? Why do you listen to me complain and rage and act like a spoiled child?" Riley erased the board and wrote her response, "Because you're not acting. You're grieving." The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. Grieving. Such a simple word, but it reframed everything he had been feeling for the past 6 months. He wasn't broken or weak or pathetic, he was grieving the loss of his old life, his old body, his old identity. "I lost everything," Nathan said, his voice barely above a whisper now. "Everything that made me who I was." Riley wrote, "No. You lost some things. Not everything." "You don't understand," Nathan said, tears he had been holding back for months finally starting to fall. "I was Nathan Cross. I built an empire. I employed thousands of people. I changed the world with my innovations. Now I'm just a rich man who can't walk. That's all I am." Riley studied his face for a long moment, then walked over to her cleaning cart and pulled out her phone. She typed a longer message than usual and showed it to him. "My son asks me every night why I have to work so many jobs. Why we can't afford the nice apartment like his friend Tommy. Why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore. I could tell him it's because his father left when things got hard. Because I dropped out of college when I got pregnant. Because the world doesn't pay cleaning ladies very much. But I tell him it's because we're building something better, one day at a time." Nathan read the message twice, struck by the quiet strength in Riley's words. She typed another message, "You think you lost who you are. I think you're afraid to find out who you could become." "What if I don't like who I become?" Nathan asked, his voice small and vulnerable. Riley's next message appeared on her phone screen, "What if you do?" The simple question hung in the air between them. Nathan had been so focused on mourning his old life that he had never considered the possibility of building a new one. He had been so afraid of not being the man he used to be that he had never explored who he might be instead. Riley put her phone away and returned to the whiteboard. She wrote, "Your pain doesn't scare me. But wasting your life does." The words cut through every defense Nathan had built around himself. This woman who worked 3 jobs and raised a son alone and still found time to pursue her education, was telling him that his self-pity was a luxury she couldn't afford to enable. "I don't know how to be anyone else," Nathan admitted, his anger finally spent. Riley's response was immediate, "Then let's figure it out together." Nathan stared at her, this remarkable woman who had somehow seen past his rage and self-pity to something worth salvaging underneath. She wasn't offering to fix him or heal him or inspire him to greatness. She was offering to stand beside him while he figured out how to be human again. "Why?" Nathan asked. "Why would you want to help me?" Riley considered the question carefully before writing her answer. "Because everyone deserves a second chance. Even angry billionaires who throw things." Despite everything, Nathan found himself laughing a rusty, broken sound, but genuine laughter nonetheless. "Especially angry billionaires who throw things?" Riley's smile was small but real as she nodded. As she finished her cleaning routine and prepared to leave, Nathan called out to her one more time. "Riley?" She turned back to him, eyebrows raised in question. "Thank you," Nathan said simply, "for not giving up on me when I gave up on myself." Riley walked back to the whiteboard and wrote one final message before erasing it and leaving. "The night is always darkest before the dawn." Alone in his room, Nathan stared out the window at the city beyond. The lights of his corporate headquarters still glowed in the distance. But for the first time in months, Nathan wasn't thinking about what he had lost. He was thinking about what he might still have the chance to build. And for the first time since the accident, Nathan Cross began to believe that dawn might actually come. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but over the following weeks, something fundamental shifted in Nathan's approach to his days. He stopped throwing things and started paying attention to the world beyond his anger. He began asking Riley questions not just about herself, but about her perspective on things he had never considered before. "What's it like?" Nathan asked one night as Riley cleaned the mirror above his sink. "Working 3 jobs, I mean. How do you do it?" Riley paused in her work and considered the question. She moved to the whiteboard and wrote, "You do what you have to do. No choice makes it easier. But don't you get tired? Don't you ever want to just give up?" Riley's response came quickly, "Every day. But Jaden needs me to keep going." Nathan watched her reflection in the mirror as she cleaned. "Tell me about him. What's he like when he's not hanging upside down from playground equipment?" Riley's face softened as she thought about her son. She pulled out her phone and typed a longer message. He collects rocks. Has jars full of them labeled with where he found each one. He makes me pancakes on Saturday mornings but always burns them a little. He reads everything he can find about animals and tells me facts I never knew I needed to know. Such as? Nathan prompted. Riley smiled as she typed. Did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts and blue blood? Jaden made sure I knew that last Tuesday. Nathan found himself smiling too. He sounds like a remarkable kid. He is, Riley wrote simply. Then she added, he asked about you. This surprised Nathan. About me? How does he even know about me? I told him I cleaned the room of a man who's learning how to be brave again. The words hit Nathan unexpectedly. Is that what I'm doing? Riley met his eyes in the mirror and nodded. Some days I don't feel very brave, Nathan admitted. Riley's next message appeared on her phone. Brave isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and showing up anyway. You've been showing up to our conversations even when it's hard. That's brave. Nathan had never thought of it that way. He had been so focused on his fear of the future that he hadn't recognized the courage it took just to engage with the present. Your son sounds wise like his mother, Nathan said. Riley's response made Nathan's chest tight. He wants to meet you someday. Says anyone who's friends with his mom must be pretty special. Friends? Nathan repeated the word thoughtfully. Is that what we are? Riley considered this seriously before writing. I think so. Are you okay with that? Nathan realized he was more than okay with it. Riley's friendship had become the most valuable thing in his world, honest, uncomplicated, and free from the expectations that weighed down every other relationship in his life. I'd like that very much, Nathan said. I'd like to meet Jaden too if that's something you'd both want. Riley nodded, then wrote something on the board that made Nathan's throat constrict. He could use a friend too. It's been hard since his dad left. Nathan wanted to ask more about Jaden's father, about what had happened to make Riley raise her son alone, but something in her posture suggested this was territory they weren't ready to explore yet. Instead, he filed the information away and focused on what he could offer. Would he like books? Nathan asked. I could have my assistant send some books about animals. Good ones, not just picture books. Riley's expression brightened as she wrote. He would love that. But you don't have to. I want to, Nathan interrupted. Let me do this, please. Riley hesitated, then nodded. She wrote down some of Jaden's favorite animals and his reading level, and Nathan made a mental note to call his assistant in the morning. It would be the first business call he had made in months that had nothing to do with Cross Industries. As the nights passed, their conversations grew deeper and more personal. Nathan learned that Riley had been studying to become a teacher when she got pregnant with Jaden. Her boyfriend at the time had promised to support her decision to keep the baby, but he disappeared when Jaden was 6 months old. I could have him tracked down, Nathan offered one night after Riley had shared this story. Make him pay child support. I have resources. Riley's response was immediate and firm. No. We don't want anything from him. We're fine on our own. But it would make things easier for you financially. Some things matter more than money, Riley wrote. Like knowing we built our life ourselves. Nathan was struck by her fierce independence. He had spent his entire adult life using his wealth and connections to solve problems, but Riley had chosen a harder path that preserved her dignity and self-reliance. I respect that, Nathan said, and meant it. But if you ever change your mind about accepting help, I'll let you know, Riley wrote, though Nathan suspected she never would. One night, Nathan asked Riley about her nursing degree. How much do you have left? 2 years, she wrote. Maybe 3 if I keep taking classes part-time. What kind of nursing interests you? Riley's answer surprised him. Rehabilitation. Helping people adapt to life changes. Nathan stared at her, understanding dawning. Because of me? Riley shook her head and wrote, because of me. Because of Jaden when his dad left. Because everyone needs help adapting sometimes. You'd be good at it, Nathan said sincerely. You've helped me more than any of the therapists my family hired. You helped yourself, Riley wrote. I just listened. But Nathan knew it was more than that. Riley had seen him clearly from the beginning, not as a tragic figure or an inspirational challenge, but as a man going through the hardest thing that had ever happened to him. She had offered her presence without judgment and her friendship without conditions. Riley, Nathan said one night as she prepared to leave. I want you to know something. These conversations, they've saved my life. Riley paused at the door and turned back to him. She walked to the whiteboard and wrote something that made Nathan's eyes fill with tears. You saved mine too. After she left, Nathan stared at the message until the words blurred. He thought about this remarkable woman who had entered his life during his darkest hour and shown him that healing was possible, that connection was still available to him, that his life still had value and meaning. Nathan had spent 6 months mourning the loss of his old identity. But through Riley's eyes he was beginning to see the possibility of a new one, not as Nathan Cross the billionaire, but as Nathan Cross the human being, capable of growth and friendship and maybe even love. For the first time since the accident, Nathan began to wonder what tomorrow might bring, not with dread, but with genuine curiosity. "I want to try something," Nathan announced one evening as Riley entered his room. It had been 2 months since their first conversation, and Nathan had been thinking about this moment for weeks. Riley looked up from her cleaning cart, eyebrows raised in question. "I want to sit up," Nathan said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Really sit up. Not just the hospital bed position, but actually sit on the edge of the bed." Riley set down her cleaning supplies and studied his face carefully. She moved to the whiteboard and wrote, "Are you sure? We should probably wait for a therapist." "No," Nathan interrupted. "No therapist, no doctors, no medical professionals telling me what I can and can't do. Just, you helping me if you're willing?" Riley hesitated, clearly understanding the significance of what he was asking. This wasn't just about changing positions, it was about Nathan taking his first real step toward reclaiming some control over his body and his life. She wrote, "What if something goes wrong? Then we'll deal with it," Nathan replied. "But I'm tired of being afraid of my own body. I'm tired of letting other people decide what I'm capable of." Riley considered this for a long moment, then nodded. She moved to his bedside and wrote, "Tell me what you need me to do." Nathan's heart pounded as he explained what he thought the process should involve. Riley listened carefully, asking questions by writing them on her phone when she needed clarification. They worked out a plan together. Nathan would use his arms to support himself while Riley helped guide his legs to the edge of the bed. "Okay," Nathan said, taking a deep breath. "Let's do this." The first attempt was clumsy and awkward. Nathan's legs felt impossibly heavy and foreign as Riley helped move them. His arms, weakened by months of inactivity, shook with the effort of supporting his upper body weight. Halfway through the movement, he panicked and asked Riley to help him lie back down. "I can't," he said, breathing heavily from the exertion and fear. "It's too much." Riley waited for his breathing to calm, then wrote on her phone, "That wasn't failure. That was practice." It felt like failure. Jaden fell off his bike 47 times before he could ride without training wheels. "I counted." Despite his frustration, Nathan smiled at the image. 47 times? 47, Riley confirmed with a nod. But on the 48th try he rode to the end of our street and back. The difference wasn't that he suddenly got stronger or braver. The difference was that he knew what falling felt like, so he wasn't afraid of it anymore. Nathan understood the metaphor. His fear wasn't really about sitting up, it was about facing the reality of his changed body. But Riley was right. He needed to get familiar with this new version of himself instead of avoiding it. "Okay," Nathan said. "Let's try again." The second attempt went better. Nathan managed to sit fully upright for nearly 30 seconds before the unfamiliar sensation of his altered balance made him dizzy. But those 30 seconds felt like a victory. "How did that feel?" Riley wrote. "Terrifying," Nathan admitted. "But also, liberating somehow." They tried 3 more times that night, with Nathan managing to sit up for longer periods each time. By their final attempt, he was able to maintain the position for almost 2 minutes, looking around his room from this new perspective. "Everything looks different from up here," Nathan marveled. He could see out his window more clearly, could observe Riley's work from a new angle. "I had forgotten what it felt like to see the world from this height." Riley wrote, "Different perspective changes everything. Is that more of your wisdom?" Nathan asked with a smile. Riley's response made him laugh. "That's Jaden wisdom. He told me that when he finally got tall enough to see over our kitchen counter." Over the following nights, Nathan continued practicing. Riley was always there to help, patient and encouraging without being patronizing. She never pushed him to do more than he felt ready for, but she also never let him settle for less than he was capable of. "I've been thinking," Nathan said one night after successfully sitting up for 10 minutes straight, "about what comes next." Riley looked at him expectantly. "I want to try transferring to a wheelchair," Nathan said. "Not one of those electric ones my family keeps suggesting. A manual one. I want to see if I can move myself around." Riley's expression grew concerned. She wrote, "That's a big step. Are you sure you're ready?" "I'm sure I'm tired of being stuck in this bed," Nathan replied. And I'm sure I trust you to help me figure it out. What about your doctors? Your family? Nathan had been dreading this question. His family would be thrilled that he was finally showing interest in mobility aids, but they would want to involve teams of specialists and therapists. They would turn it into a medical event instead of a personal choice. I want to try it with you first, Nathan said. Just us like everything else we've done. If it works, then I'll tell them. If it doesn't, he shrugged. At least I'll know I tried. Riley studied his face for a long moment, then wrote, When? Tomorrow night. I've already arranged for a wheelchair to be delivered. It should be in the storage room down the hall. You arranged this without telling your doctors? I have my ways, Nathan said with a slight smile. Turns out being wealthy still has some advantages. Riley shook her head, but Nathan could see she was fighting back a smile of her own. The next evening, Nathan waited anxiously for Riley's arrival. The wheelchair, a lightweight manual model he had researched extensively, was indeed waiting in the storage room. Nathan had spent the day psyching himself up for this moment, knowing it represented another significant step in his journey toward independence. When Riley arrived, she immediately sensed his nervous energy. She wrote, Ready for this? As ready as I'll ever be, Nathan replied. They retrieved the wheelchair together, with Riley pushing it while Nathan watched from his bed. It looked smaller than he had expected, less intimidating than the electric models his family had shown him in brochures. Okay, Nathan said, his mouth dry with anticipation. Let's see if I can do this. The transfer process was more complicated than simply sitting up. Nathan had to coordinate the movement of his upper body while Riley helped position his legs in the wheelchair. It took 3 attempts, but finally Nathan found himself sitting in the wheelchair, looking back at his empty hospital bed. I did it, Nathan said, his voice filled with wonder. I'm actually sitting in a wheelchair. Riley wrote, How does it feel? Nathan considered the question carefully. The wheelchair felt strange, foreign, but also like possibility. It feels like freedom, he said finally. Like I might actually be able to go places again. Riley's smile was radiant as she wrote, Want to take it for a test drive? Nathan's first journey in the wheelchair was just to the window and back, a distance of maybe 10 feet. But it felt like crossing a continent. His arms burned with the effort of turning the wheels, and his coordination was clumsy, but he was moving under his own power for the first time in 8 months. This is incredible, Nathan said as Riley helped him transfer back to his bed at the end of her shift. I can't believe I waited so long to try this. Riley wrote, You tried when you were ready. That's what matters. As she prepared to leave, Nathan called out to her. Riley? Thank you. For all of this. For believing I could do it even when I didn't believe it myself. Riley's final message of the night made Nathan's chest swell with emotion. I never doubted you. I was just waiting for you to catch up. Alone in his room, Nathan stared at the wheelchair position beside his bed. It represented so many things: adaptation, acceptance, the possibility of a future beyond these 4 walls. But most importantly, it represented progress made possible by the friendship and support of someone who had seen his potential when he couldn't see it himself. Nathan Cross was learning to move forward again, one wheel turn at a time. 3 months into their friendship, Nathan made a decision that would have shocked anyone who knew him before the accident. He told Riley about his dreams. Not his business dreams or his financial ambitions, those had died in the wreckage of his Tesla. He told her about the dreams he'd had as a child, before success and money had narrowed his vision to profit margins and market share. I wanted to be a teacher once, Nathan said one night as Riley organized supplies in his room. He was sitting in his wheelchair now, having grown comfortable enough with transfers that he spent most of their conversations in the chair rather than in bed. Riley looked up from her work, clearly intrigued by this unexpected revelation. When I was 10, maybe 11, Nathan continued, my 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Patterson, made learning feel like magic. She taught us about ancient civilizations by having us build our own Egyptian pyramids out of cardboard. She explained photosynthesis by turning our classroom into a rainforest for a week. Riley moved to the whiteboard and wrote, What changed your mind? My father, Nathan replied without hesitation. He said teaching was what people did when they couldn't make real money. He steered me toward business, toward profit, toward success. Nathan's voice grew bitter. He taught me to measure everything by its financial value. Riley erased the board and wrote, Do you still want to teach? The question hung in the air between them. Nathan had been thinking about it for weeks, ever since he'd started looking forward to his conversations with Riley. He realized he enjoyed explaining things to her, sharing ideas, learning about her perspective in return. Maybe, Nathan said carefully, Not in a traditional classroom, but, I don't know. Maybe there's some way to use what I've learned to help people. Riley's next message made Nathan's heart rate increase. You've already started. What do you mean? The books you sent Jaden. The way you explain technology to me. The patience you show when I ask questions about business. That's teaching. Nathan had never thought of it that way. The books he'd been sending Jaden had become a regular thing, carefully chosen volumes about marine biology, astronomy, veterinary science. Jaden always sent thank you notes back, written in his careful 8-year-old handwriting, filled with questions and observations that delighted Nathan. Jaden's notes are the best part of my day, Nathan admitted. His questions are so thoughtful. Last week he asked if octopuses dream, and I spent 3 hours researching it just so I could give him a good answer. Riley's smile was soft as she wrote, What did you find out? Scientists aren't sure, but there's evidence that they might experience something like REM sleep. I sent him a video of an octopus changing colors while it slept, possibly dreaming. He loved that video, Riley wrote. Watched it 12 times and told everyone at school about it. The thought of Jaden sharing Nathan's gift with his classmates filled Nathan with warmth. He was contributing to a child's education, sparking curiosity and wonder in ways that had nothing to do with profit or market dominance. Tell me about his school, Nathan said. Is it a good one? Riley's expression grew complicated. She wrote, It's okay. Overcrowded. Not enough resources. But his teacher cares, and that makes a difference. What kind of resources do they need? Riley hesitated before writing. Books, mostly. Science equipment. Art supplies. The basics that other schools take for granted. Nathan felt something stir inside him, not the old hunger for conquest and acquisition, but something warmer and more purposeful. What if I could help with that? Riley started to write, but he interrupted. Not charity, Nathan said quickly, understanding her resistance. Investment. What if I invested in Jaden's school? Not as a handout, but as a way to support education in the community. Riley studied his face carefully, looking for signs that this was pity or guilt disguised as generosity. Why, she finally wrote. Because you've shown me that there are things more valuable than money, Nathan said. Because Jaden and kids like him deserve the same opportunities that I had. Because maybe this is how I can use what I've built for something meaningful. Riley considered this for a long time before writing. You would do that? Really? I'd like to try, Nathan said. But only if you think it's a good idea. Only if it's something the school would actually want. Riley's eyes filled with tears as she wrote. They would love it. The kids would love it. Then let's make it happen. Over the following weeks, Nathan began making phone calls again, not to board meetings or strategy sessions, but to educators and nonprofit organizations. He spoke with Jaden's principal, visited the school's website, and researched best practices for educational support. Riley became his guide in this new world, helping him understand needs he had never considered. She explained how lack of supplies affected learning, how overcrowded classrooms made individual attention impossible, how teachers spent their own money on basic materials. I had no idea, Nathan confessed one night after Riley had explained how some students went hungry on weekends when school meals weren't available. I've been so isolated from these realities. Riley wrote, Most wealthy people are. It's not intentional, your worlds just don't overlap. But they should, Nathan said with growing conviction. How can we solve problems we don't understand? Riley's response surprised him. We? Nathan realized what he had said and felt a moment of panic. Had he overstepped? Assumed too much about their relationship? I mean, if you wanted to be involved, Nathan said carefully. You understand these issues better than I do. You could help me make sure the help actually helps. Riley stared at him for a long moment, then wrote, You want me to be your partner in this? If you're willing, Nathan said. I have resources, but you have wisdom. You understand what it's like to struggle, what it's like to need help but still want to maintain your dignity. I think we could do good work together. Riley erased the board and wrote something that made Nathan's breath catch. I would like that very much. As they began planning their educational initiative, Nathan found himself sharing more personal details about his life. He told Riley about the loneliness of his success, how wealth had isolated him from genuine relationships. He explained how his accident had stripped away the superficial connections built on mutual advantage, leaving him to discover who actually cared about him as a person. The answer was almost no one, Nathan admitted. My family loves me, but they love the successful version of me more. My business associates are managing fine without me. The women I dated were more interested in my bank account than my personality. Riley wrote, That must have been lonely even before the accident. It was, Nathan realized. I just stayed too busy to notice. And now? Nathan looked at Riley, really looked at her. This woman who worked 3 jobs and still made time to encourage him. Who asked thoughtful questions about his ideas and challenged him to think beyond his own experience. Who had seen him at his worst and chosen to believe in his capacity for growth. Now I understand the difference between being surrounded by people and actually being known by someone, Nathan said softly. Riley's cheeks flushed slightly as she wrote, I'm glad you feel known. I do, Nathan said. For the first time in years I feel like someone sees the real me. Not Nathan Cross the billionaire or Nathan Cross the tragic accident victim. Just, Nathan. Riley's response made his heart skip. I like Nathan. He's much more interesting than his reputation suggested. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both understanding that something had shifted between them. The foundation of trust and friendship they had built was strong enough to support deeper feelings, but neither was quite ready to name what was growing between them. Riley, Nathan said as she prepared to leave. I want you to know that whatever happens with our project, whatever happens with anything else, your friendship has given me my life back. Riley's final message of the night was simple but profound. You gave me mine back too. As Nathan watched her leave, he realized that somewhere in their months of quiet conversations and mutual support, he had begun to heal. Not just physically but emotionally and spiritually. Riley had shown him that his worth wasn't tied to his abilities or his accomplishments, but to his capacity for connection and growth. And slowly, carefully, Nathan was beginning to believe that he might be capable of both. Nathan had been planning this conversation for weeks, but as Riley entered his room that evening, his carefully rehearsed words suddenly felt inadequate. He was sitting in his wheelchair by the window, having spent the day making phone calls and arrangements for what he hoped would change both their lives. I have something I want to discuss with you, Nathan said as Riley began her usual routine. Something important. Riley glanced at him, noting the serious tone in his voice. She set down her cleaning supplies and moved to the whiteboard, writing, What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Nathan assured her. Actually, everything might be about to get much better. For both of us. Riley's expression grew curious as she wrote, I'm listening. Nathan took a deep breath, knowing that what he was about to propose would challenge Riley's fierce independence. I've been working on our education project, talking to consultants and administrators, figuring out how to make the biggest impact. Riley nodded, encouraging him to continue. The thing is, I can write checks and hire experts, but I can't implement change from this hospital room. I need someone who understands the community, who knows what families actually need, who can be my eyes and ears and voice in places I can't go. Riley was already shaking her head before Nathan finished speaking. She wrote, I'm not qualified for that kind of work. You're the most qualified person I know, Nathan countered. You're studying to be a nurse, you've worked in multiple service industries, you understand what it's like to struggle financially, and you have the best judgment of anyone I've ever met. Riley's response was immediate. I don't have business experience. I don't have connections. I don't have the right education. You have something more valuable than any of that, Nathan said. You have authenticity. You have the trust of people who need help because you've been where they are. Nathan rolled his wheelchair closer to where Riley stood. I want to offer you a job. A real job with a real salary, working with me to develop and oversee community programs through a foundation I'm establishing. Riley stared at him, her cleaning rag forgotten in her hand. The salary would be enough for you to quit your other jobs and focus on your nursing degree if you want it, Nathan continued. Full-time work with flexible hours so you can still be there for Jaden. Health insurance, education benefits, everything you and your son deserve. Riley moved to the whiteboard with shaking hands and wrote, Why? Because you're brilliant, Nathan said without hesitation. Because you understand people and problems in ways I never will. Because I trust you completely, and trust is the rarest commodity in my world. Riley erased the board and wrote, I can't accept charity. It's not charity, Nathan said firmly. It's business. I need someone I can rely on to help me do this work properly. You need financial stability and career growth. This serves both our interests. You don't need me specifically, Riley wrote. You could hire anyone. Could I? Nathan challenged. Could I hire someone else who would spend months earning my trust before trying to fix me? Could I find someone else who would challenge my assumptions while still supporting my growth? Could I hire someone else who would see value in teaching a lonely billionaire how to be human again? Riley's eyes filled with tears as she read his words. This isn't about me helping you, Nathan continued. This is about us helping each other build something meaningful. I have resources but no direction. You have vision but limited resources. Together we could actually make a difference. Riley wrote, "What about my nursing degree?" "Keep working on it," Nathan said. "The foundation would pay for accelerated courses if you want it. Or you could take your time, no pressure. Healthcare and education overlap in important ways. Your nursing background would make you even more valuable in this role." Riley stared at the board, clearly overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Nathan was offering. "I know it's a lot to consider," Nathan said gently. "And I know accepting help doesn't come naturally to you. But this isn't help, it's partnership. I need you, Riley. Not because I feel sorry for you, but because you're exactly the right person for this work." Riley wrote, "What would Jaden think?" "Jaden would think his mom is amazing for using her talents to help other kids get better opportunities," Nathan replied. "He'd be proud of you. Just like I'm proud to know you." Riley's next message made Nathan's chest tighten. "You really think I could do this?" "I know you could do this," Nathan said with absolute certainty. "You've already been doing it, helping me understand things I never saw before, asking the right questions, thinking about solutions that actually work for real people. This would just be making it official." Riley considered this for several long minutes, writing and erasing messages on the board multiple times before settling on, "When would this start?" "Whenever you're ready," Nathan said. "Tomorrow, next month, whenever you've had time to think it through and feel comfortable with the decision." "You really want me as your partner in this?" "I can't imagine doing it with anyone else," Nathan said honestly. Riley moved away from the whiteboard and pulled out her phone to type a longer message. "I've never had a job that felt like it mattered. I've never been anyone's partner in anything important. I don't know if I'm brave enough for this." "You've been my partner in the most important work I've ever done," Nathan replied. "Helping me find my way back to being human. If you can do that, you can do anything." Riley stared at her phone screen for a long moment, then looked up at Nathan with an expression that mixed fear and hope in equal measure. "Can I think about it?" she wrote. "Of course," Nathan said. "Take all the time you need." "But Riley?" She looked at him expectantly. "Whatever you decide, our friendship doesn't change. This opportunity exists because I value you as a person, not the other way around." Riley's smile was tremulous but genuine as she wrote, "Thank you for believing in me." "Thank you for giving me something worth believing in," Nathan replied. After Riley left that night, Nathan sat in his wheelchair looking out at the city lights. For the first time since his accident, he felt genuinely excited about the future. Not because of what he might regain, but because of what he might build with Riley, for their community, and for the version of himself that was emerging from the ruins of his old life. Whether Riley accepted his offer or not, Nathan knew that their friendship had already changed both their lives in ways that couldn't be measured in dollars or degrees. But if she said yes, if she was willing to take this leap of faith with him, Nathan believed they could change many more lives together. He had never been more hopeful about what tomorrow might bring. Riley's answer came 3 days later, delivered not through their usual written communication but in spoken words that made Nathan's heart soar. "Yes," she said simply as she entered his room, her voice soft but clear. "I want to be your partner." Nathan stared at her in shock. "You spoke." Riley smiled, a real smile that transformed her entire face. "I figured if we're going to be business partners, I should probably start talking to you." "Why now?" Nathan asked, still amazed to hear her voice. It was warm and melodic, with a slight rasp that suggested she hadn't used it much recently. "Because you gave me something worth speaking up for," Riley said, moving to sit in the chair beside his bed. "Because you saw me as more than just the cleaning lady, more than just a single mom struggling to get by. You saw me as someone with value, with ideas, with something to contribute." "I saw who you really are," Nathan said softly. "And now I want to see who I can become," Riley replied. "With your help." Over the following weeks, they began planning the Cross-Community Foundation in earnest. Nathan had his lawyers draw up the paperwork while Riley researched community needs and potential programs. Their conversations shifted from personal sharing to professional collaboration, though the underlying friendship remained strong. "I've been thinking about mobile health clinics," Riley said one evening as they reviewed grant applications. "So many families can't afford to miss work for doctor visits, can't arrange transportation to medical appointments." "That's brilliant," Nathan said, making notes on his tablet. "Preventive care delivered directly to communities. It could save thousands of dollars per family in emergency room costs alone." Riley had quit her other jobs the week before, and the change in her was remarkable. No longer exhausted from working 18-hour days, she was energetic and creative, full of ideas for programs that could make real differences in people's lives. "There's something else," Riley said, her tone growing more serious. "Something I want to try if you're willing." "What is it?" "Physical therapy," Riley said. "Real physical therapy, not just the sitting up and wheelchair transfers we've been doing." Nathan's expression grew guarded. "Riley, we've talked about this. I'm not interested in false hope or miracle cures." "That's not what this is," Riley interrupted. "This is about you getting stronger so you can be more involved in the foundation work. You can't visit schools or attend community meetings if you're not physically prepared for those activities." Nathan considered this. "You think I could get strong enough for field work?" "I think you're already stronger than you know," Riley said. "But I also think you've been avoiding finding out what you're really capable of because you're afraid of being disappointed." Nathan knew she was right. He had been making progress with his upper body strength and his wheelchair skills, but he had been avoiding any formal assessment of his potential for further recovery. "What did you have in mind?" Nathan asked cautiously. "I spoke with Dr. Martinez, the head of rehabilitation services here," Riley said. "She's willing to do an evaluation, design a program specifically for your goals. Not about walking again necessarily, but about maximizing your function and independence." Nathan felt his old fears rising. "What if she tells me I'll never improve? What if I'm as good as I'm ever going to get?" "Then we'll work with what you have," Riley said matter-of-factly. "But what if she tells you there's more potential than you thought? What if she can help you get strong enough to live the life you want to live?" Nathan looked at Riley, this woman who had pushed him toward growth at every step of their relationship. She had never accepted his limitations as permanent, had never allowed him to settle for less than his potential. "Okay," Nathan said finally. "Let's do the evaluation." Dr. Martinez's assessment was both encouraging and sobering. Nathan had maintained more sensation and muscle function than he had realized, but months of inactivity had significantly weakened his overall condition. "You have what we call an incomplete spinal cord injury," Dr. Martinez explained. "There's still some neural pathway communication below your level of injury. With intensive therapy you might regain some additional function." "What kind of function?" Nathan asked. "Possibly improved trunk stability, better muscle strength in your hips and thighs, maybe even some limited standing ability with braces and support equipment." Nathan's heart raced. "Standing? It's not guaranteed," Dr. Martinez warned. "And even if achieved, it would likely be therapeutic standing rather than functional mobility. But it could improve your overall health and give you more options for daily activities." Nathan looked at Riley, who was taking careful notes. "What do you think?" "I think we should try," Riley said simply. "What do we have to lose?" The therapy program Dr. Martinez designed was grueling. 3 sessions per week, each lasting 2 hours, focusing on strength training, balance work, and functional movement patterns. Nathan's first session left him exhausted and discouraged. "I can barely manage 10 minutes on the standing frame," Nathan complained as Riley helped him transfer back to his wheelchair. "How am I supposed to build up enough strength to actually accomplish anything?" "The same way Jaden learned to ride his bike," Riley reminded him. "One attempt at a time, accepting that progress is slow and setbacks are normal." But the setbacks were harder than Nathan had anticipated. Some days, his muscles wouldn't respond the way they had the session before. Other days, fatigue overwhelmed him before he could complete his exercises. The worst day came in his 4th week of therapy, when a muscle spasm sent him crashing to the therapy mat in pain and frustration. "I can't do this," Nathan said as Riley helped him back into his wheelchair. "This was a mistake. I was managing fine before we started this program." "Managing isn't living," Riley said gently. "You were surviving, but you weren't thriving. What if surviving is enough? What if this is just going to end in disappointment and wasted effort?" Riley knelt beside Nathan's wheelchair so they were at eye level. "Do you remember what you told me when I was afraid to accept the foundation job?" Nathan shook his head. "You said that I had been your partner in the most important work you'd ever done, helping you find your way back to being human. You said if I could do that, I could do anything." Nathan's eyes filled with tears as he remembered the conversation. "The same thing applies to you," Riley continued. "You've already done the hardest work. You've learned to hope again, to trust again, to care about something beyond your own pain. Physical therapy isn't harder than that emotional work you've already accomplished." Nathan reached out and took Riley's hand, squeezing it gently. "When did you become so wise?" "I learned from an excellent teacher," Riley said with a smile. "A stubborn billionaire who taught me that giving up isn't really an option when you have people counting on you." People counting on me? Jaden is excited about visiting schools with you once you're stronger. Dr. Martinez thinks you could inspire other patients if you stick with the program. The foundation has 3 community partnerships waiting for your approval. Riley squeezed his hand back. And I'm counting on you too. My partner doesn't give up when things get difficult. Nathan felt something shift inside him, not the desperate hope for miraculous recovery, but the steady determination that had built his business empire. This wasn't about returning to his old life. This was about building the strength for his new one. Okay, Nathan said. Let's get back to work. The progress came in small increments: an extra minute of standing time, a slight improvement in trunk stability, better coordination in his transfers. But progress was progress, and with Riley's support, Nathan began to believe that he might indeed become strong enough for the active life he wanted to build through their foundation. 3 months into the program, Nathan achieved something that amazed everyone. He stood unsupported for 30 seconds, holding onto parallel bars but bearing his own weight through his legs. Riley cried when she saw the video Dr. Martinez had recorded. "I'm so proud of you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you," Nathan replied. "None of this, the therapy, the foundation, finding hope again, none of it would have happened without you believing in me." As they celebrated this milestone, Nathan realized that his feelings for Riley had evolved beyond friendship and partnership into something deeper and more complex. But with that realization came a new fear. What if his growing love for this remarkable woman jeopardized everything they had built together? Some risks, Nathan thought as he watched Riley's radiant smile, were worth taking. But timing would be everything. 6 months of intensive therapy had transformed Nathan in ways that went far beyond physical strength. As he prepared for what Dr. Martinez had promised would be his biggest challenge, yet attempting to take steps using forearm crutches, Nathan felt a confidence he hadn't experienced since before his accident. "You ready for this?" Riley asked as they entered the physical therapy gym. She had never missed a session, offering encouragement during his victories and comfort during his setbacks. "As ready as I'll ever be," Nathan replied, though his heart was pounding with nervous excitement. Dr. Martinez had explained the process carefully. The parallel bars would provide backup support, but Nathan would rely primarily on the crutches and his own leg strength to maintain balance and forward momentum. Even if successful, his steps would be slow and deliberate, nothing like normal walking. But they would be steps. Riley positioned herself at the far end of the parallel bars, about 10 feet from where Nathan sat in his wheelchair. It had been her suggestion. She wanted to be the first person he walked toward if he managed to take steps. "Remember," Dr. Martinez said as she helped Nathan transfer to the standing frame, "this isn't about speed or distance. This is about control and balance. If you feel unstable, use the bars for support." Nathan gripped the crutches, feeling their weight and adjusting his grip. The standing frame supported most of his weight, but he could feel his legs bearing some load for the first time in over a year. "Okay," Nathan said, his voice steady despite his racing pulse. "Let's see what happens." Dr. Martinez gradually reduced the support from the standing frame until Nathan was balancing independently with just the crutches. His legs shook with the effort, muscles that hadn't borne weight in months struggling to remember their purpose. "How do you feel?" Dr. Martinez asked. "Terrified," Nathan admitted, "but also excited." Riley's voice carried across the gym. "You've got this, Nathan. I believe in you." Nathan looked at her standing at the end of the parallel bars, beautiful and encouraging, and felt something click into place. This wasn't just about taking steps. This was about moving toward the life he wanted to build, the future he could envision with Riley by his side. "Here goes nothing," Nathan murmured and lifted his right crutch forward. The first movement was clumsy, his leg dragging rather than stepping. But he maintained his balance and managed to shift his weight forward slightly. The second attempt was better, more controlled, more deliberate. By the third movement, Nathan realized he was actually walking. Slowly, carefully, with tremendous effort and concentration, but walking nonetheless. "That's it," Dr. Martinez called out. "Keep going, Nathan. You're doing beautifully." Riley's eyes were streaming with tears, but her voice was strong and clear. "Come to me, Nathan. You can do this." Step by agonizing step, Nathan made his way down the parallel bars toward Riley. His legs burned with effort, his arms shook from supporting his weight, but he kept moving. Each step was a victory, each forward movement a triumph over the limitations that had defined his life for the past year. When he was 3 steps away from Riley, Nathan felt his strength beginning to fail. His left leg buckled slightly, and he had to grab the parallel bar to steady himself. "It's okay," Riley said, moving closer. You've already done something incredible. No, Nathan said, breathing heavily but determined. I'm going to make it to you. He pushed off the bar and took another step, then another. On his final step, Nathan let go of the parallel bars entirely and reached forward with his right crutch, covering the last few inches to where Riley stood. When he reached her, Riley was sobbing with joy and pride. Without thinking, she threw her arms around Nathan's shoulders, careful not to disturb his balance but unable to contain her emotion. You did it, she whispered against his ear. You actually walked to me. Nathan dropped one crutch and wrapped his free arm around Riley, holding her close while using his other crutch and the parallel bar to maintain his balance. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of her embrace and the triumph of his achievement, Nathan felt complete in a way he never had before. Riley, he said softly, his voice thick with emotion and exertion. There's something I need to tell you. She pulled back to look at his face, concern flickering in her eyes at his serious tone. What is it? I love you, Nathan said simply. I've loved you for months now, but I was afraid to say it. Afraid it would complicate our friendship, our work partnership, everything we've built together. Riley's breath caught, her eyes searching his face. Nathan. I know it's complicated, Nathan continued quickly. I know I'm not the easiest person to love, especially now. I know you have Jaden to think about, your career, your independence that you've worked so hard to build. But I had to tell you, especially now, after you've helped me become someone I never thought I could be again. Riley was quiet for a long moment, her hands still resting on Nathan's shoulders as he balanced against the parallel bar. Dr. Martinez had discreetly moved to the other end of the gym, giving them privacy for this moment. You think you're not easy to love? Riley finally said, her voice soft but clear. Nathan, you're the most generous, thoughtful, genuine person I know. You've changed my entire life, given me opportunities one never dreamed of, believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. But, Nathan prompted, hearing hesitation in her voice. But I need you to understand something, Riley said, cupping his face in her hands. I didn't fall in love with Nathan Cross the billionaire. I didn't fall in love with the man who could walk or the man who's learning to walk again. I fell in love with the man who throws books when he's frustrated, who researches octopus dreams for my son, who gets excited about mobile health clinics and education programs. Nathan's heart stopped. You fell in love with me? Months ago, Riley admitted with a tearful smile. I fell in love with the man who saw me as more than just a cleaning lady, who treated me like an equal partner, who trusted me with his pain and his hopes. Then why didn't you say anything? Same reason you didn't, Riley said with a gentle laugh. I was afraid of complicating things. Afraid you might think I was only interested because of your money or your connections. Afraid that if things went wrong between us, I'd lose not just you but also the work we're doing together, the future I'm building for Jaden and myself. Nathan shifted his weight on the crutches so he could frame Riley's face with one hand. And now I think we've both been idiots, Riley said, leaning into his touch. We've been partners in everything else. Why not be partners in love too? Nathan's smile was radiant as he leaned forward and kissed Riley gently, sweetly, pouring months of suppressed emotion into the contact. It was their first kiss, but it felt like a homecoming, like the natural culmination of all the trust and affection they had built together. When they broke apart, both were breathing unsteadily, but Nathan was still standing upright on his crutches, his balance maintained even in the midst of this life-changing moment. I love you too, Riley said, the words flowing easily now that the barrier between them had been broken. I love your stubborn determination, your generous heart, your brilliant mind, and yes, even your tendency to overthink everything. Nathan laughed, the sound filled with pure joy. What happens now? Now we figure it out together, Riley said. Just like we figured out everything else. Dr. Martinez chose that moment to approach, her face beaming with professional pride and personal happiness for her patient. I hate to interrupt, she said with a knowing smile, but Nathan, you need to sit down before your muscles give out completely. That was an extraordinary first attempt at crutch walking, but you don't want to push too hard and risk injury. Nathan allowed Dr. Martinez and Riley to help him back into his wheelchair, but his spirits remained soaring. He had accomplished two impossible things in one day. He had walked 10 feet under his own power, and he had told the woman he loved how he felt and discovered she loved him in return. So what's next? Riley asked as they prepared to leave the therapy gym. Nathan reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. Well, I was thinking we could start by telling Jaden that his mom's business partner would like to take them both out to dinner. Somewhere fancy to celebrate. And then we take things one step at a time, Nathan said, squeezing her hand. Literally and figuratively. We keep working on the foundation, I keep working on getting stronger, and we figure out how to build a life together. Riley's smile was luminous. I like the sound of that. As they left the hospital that evening, Nathan in his wheelchair with Riley walking beside him, both felt the weight of possibility surrounding them. The future was uncertain. Nathan's physical recovery would be ongoing, their relationship would require careful navigation, and their professional partnership would need to evolve to accommodate their personal feelings. But they had faced greater challenges already and emerged stronger for it. Together they had built trust, friendship, partnership, and now love. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. Nathan had spent over a year learning to walk again, but the most important steps he had taken were the ones that brought him to Riley. And as they made plans for their first official date and their continued work together, Nathan realized that he had never been more excited about where his next steps might lead. 3 months later, Nathan stood at the altar of a small chapel, supported by his forearm crutches but standing nonetheless. Riley approached down the simple aisle, radiant in an elegant but understated dress, with Jaden walking proudly beside her as both ring-bearer and the man giving his mother away. The ceremony was small and intimate, just Nathan's immediate family, a few close friends, and the medical team that had supported Nathan's recovery. Dr. Martinez sat in the front row, tears in her eyes as she watched her patient take these most important steps. "You look beautiful," Nathan whispered as Riley reached his side. "You look pretty good yourself," Riley replied, her eyes sparkling with joy and mischief. "Very handsome when you're vertical." Jaden, now 9 years old and fully embracing his role as Nathan's soon-to-be stepson, grinned up at them both. "Are you going to kiss now? Because I have the rings when you're ready." The officiating minister chuckled along with the small congregation. "I think we should probably do the vows first, young man." Nathan had written his vows himself, and as he began to speak, his voice was strong and clear. "Riley, a year and a half ago you entered my room during the darkest period of my life. I was angry, broken, and convinced that my story was over. You showed me that endings can also be beginnings, that falling down is only permanent if you choose not to get back up." Riley's eyes filled with tears as Nathan continued. "You didn't try to fix me or inspire me or make me into someone I wasn't. You simply saw me, really saw me, and chose to believe that I was worth knowing. Through your friendship, I learned that my value as a person wasn't tied to my achievements or my abilities, but to my capacity for growth, love, and connection." Nathan shifted slightly on his crutches, his balance steady and sure. "Today, as I stand here on my own 2 feet, I'm not just making vows to you as my wife. I'm making them as your partner in all things, in the work we do together, in raising Jaden, in building the life we both deserve. I promise to see you clearly, to support your dreams, and to walk beside you through whatever challenges come our way." Riley wiped her tears and began her own vows. "Nathan, when I first met you, I was working 3 jobs and convinced that struggle was just my permanent condition. You showed me that I had value beyond my circumstances, that my perspective and insights mattered, that I could be someone's partner instead of just someone's employee." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "You gave me the courage to dream bigger than survival, to believe in my own potential, to trust that love could be based on mutual respect and shared values instead of just need or convenience. You've been an incredible father figure to Jaden, and I know you'll continue to guide and support him as he grows." Riley reached out and took Nathan's free hand. "I promise to continue challenging you when you need it, supporting you always, and building this beautiful life we've started together. I promise to be your partner in every sense of the word, for all the days we have ahead of us." Jaden stepped forward with the rings, his face serious with the importance of his role. "These are the rings that mean you're going to be a family forever," he announced solemnly. "That's right, buddy," Nathan said, accepting the rings from Jaden with a warm smile. "We're going to be a family forever." After the rings were exchanged and the final vows spoken, the minister pronounced them husband and wife. Nathan carefully shifted his weight to one crutch so he could cup Riley's face with his free hand as they shared their first kiss as a married couple. The reception was held at Nathan's penthouse apartment, which had been modified for wheelchair accessibility but which he now navigated primarily on crutches. The space had been transformed from the cold, impersonal showplace of his bachelor days into a warm home filled with evidence of his new life: Jaden's artwork on the refrigerator, Riley's nursing textbooks on the shelves, and photos from their foundation events covering the walls. "Speech," called out Nathan's sister as the small group of guests gathered for dinner. "The groom needs to make a speech." Nathan stood carefully, using the table for support but confident in his balance. He raised his champagne glass with a steady hand. A year ago, if someone had told me that I would be standing here today, married to the most remarkable woman I've ever known and about to officially become stepfather to an incredible young man, I would have thought they were delusional. The guest chuckled as Jaden beamed with pride. But Riley taught me that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. Our foundation has already helped establish 3 new educational programs and funded 2 mobile health clinics. But more importantly, it's shown me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in the lives you touch and the love you share. Nathan looked directly at Riley and Jaden. Riley, you saved my life in every way that matters. Jaden, you've taught me that being a dad is the greatest privilege a man can have. Together, you've both shown me that family isn't just about blood, it's about choice, commitment, and showing up for each other every single day. He raised his glass higher. So here's to new beginnings, to second chances, and to the truth that sometimes falling down is exactly what you need to learn how to really stand up. Here's to the Cross family, all 3 of us. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Jaden pulled Nathan aside for a private conversation. Nathan, Jaden said seriously, I have something important to ask you. What is it, buddy? Now that you're married to my mom, does that mean I can call you Dad? Nathan felt his throat constrict with emotion. Over the past months, he had grown to love this thoughtful, curious boy as if he were his own son. But he had never presumed to claim that title. Only if you want to, Nathan said carefully. I would be honored to be your dad, but I also respect that you have a biological father, even if he's not part of your life right now. Jaden considered this with the seriousness that characterized all his important decisions. I think I want to call you Dad, he said finally. Because dads are the ones who show up and take care of you and love you no matter what. That's what you do. Nathan knelt down to Jaden's level, balancing carefully on one knee with his crutches for support. Then I would love nothing more than to be your dad, officially and forever. Jaden threw his arms around Nathan's neck, nearly knocking him off balance but filling his heart with more joy than he had ever thought possible. Later that evening, as Nathan and Riley sat on their terrace overlooking the city, Jaden asleep in his new bedroom down the hall, they reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't taken that night shift job at the hospital? Riley asked, curled up beside Nathan on the outdoor couch. I try not to, Nathan admitted. I don't like to imagine my life without you and Jaden in it. I think we would have found each other somehow, Riley said thoughtfully. Maybe through the foundation work, maybe some other way. Some connections are just meant to be. Nathan agreed, thinking about the series of choices and coincidences that had led to their meeting. His accident had been devastating, but it had also stripped away all the superficial layers of his old life and left him open to the kind of authentic connection he had never experienced before. What's next for us? Riley asked, settling more comfortably against Nathan's side. Well, Nathan said, stroking her hair gently, you graduate with your nursing degree in 18 months. The foundation has 3 new programs launching this fall. Jaden starts Little League again next month, and he specifically requested that his dad attend all his games. And us? What's next for us personally? Nathan was quiet for a moment, considering the future that stretched ahead of them. His physical recovery would continue. Dr. Martinez believed he might eventually progress to walking short distances with just a cane. But more importantly, he had learned that his worth and happiness weren't dependent on his physical abilities. I think we keep doing what we've been doing, Nathan said finally. We keep showing up for each other, keep building something meaningful together, keep proving that love based on mutual respect and shared values can overcome any obstacle. Riley tilted her head up to look at him. That sounds perfect to me. As they sat together in comfortable silence, watching the lights of the city twinkle below them, Nathan reflected on the unexpected turns his life had taken. He had lost his legs, his company, and his old identity. But he had gained a wife, a son, a purpose, and a kind of happiness he had never known existed. Nathan Cross had learned to walk again, but more importantly, he had learned to live, to love, and to believe in the possibility of new beginnings at any stage of life. The accident that had seemed like an ending had actually been the beginning of the most meaningful chapter of his story. And with Riley and Jaden by his side, Nathan looked forward to writing the rest of that story, one step at a time. Dear amazing viewers, thank you for joining Nathan and Riley on their journey of healing and love. This story explores themes that many of us can relate to: overcoming adversity, finding unexpected connections, and discovering that our worth isn't defined by our circumstances but by our capacity for growth and love. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What moment in their relationship resonated most with you? Have you ever experienced a time when what seemed like an ending actually became a new beginning? Do you believe that some connections are just meant to be, regardless of the circumstances that bring people together? Your comments and reflections help me understand what aspects of these stories touch readers most deeply. Thank you for reading, and I hope Nathan and Riley's story has brought some warmth and hope to your day.